Once Christ returns, we will be in charge, the Israelites, and we will run the earth. And we're going to run it in righteousness. There won't be no more unwanted pregnancies, no more divorces, no more women jumping in your face telling you she going to do what she want to do. No. In that day, the women will be submissive.
I am the punishment of God. And if you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you.
Good afternoon, brothers and sisters, and shalom. Today we're going to talk about what certain words in the Bible means. A lot of people have their own definitions of these words, but we're not going to go by Google's definition. We're not going to go by Howard University's definition. We're going to go by the Bible's definition. The Bible is its own dictionary, and we're going to start with the word righteousness because we hear Christians use that word a lot. So, if you will, we're going to go to Romans chapter 10. We're going to start at verse 5. Our brother here is going to read that for you. Read verse 5.
Yes, my brother. For Moses describeth the righteousness which is of the law, that the man which doth those things shall live by them.
So, for Moses describeth the righteousness which is of the law, that the man which doeth those things shall live by them. So, what is righteousness? Go to Romans chapter 8. Romans chapter 8. We're going to find out what righteousness is. And we're going to start at verse 4.
That the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled in us, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit.
So the righteousness in the scripture is talking about God's law. For the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled in us, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. Now, what is the Spirit? Let's go to Romans chapter 7. We're going to find out what the Spirit is. That's Romans chapter 7. And we're going to start at verse 14.
For we know that the law is spiritual.
For we know that the law is spiritual. So the law is spiritual.
But I am carnal, sold under sin.
Okay, that's it on that. Let's go to Psalms 119. We're going to go to Psalms 119. And yeah, let's just go to Psalms 119. I think we're going to start at verse 142. Psalms 119, verse 142.
Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth.
Thy law is the truth. Thy law is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. So righteousness has to do with God's laws, and thy law is the truth. Let's go to Malachi chapter 2, and we're going to start at verse 6. Malachi chapter 2, verse 6. Just bear with me a minute. Malachi chapter 2, verse 6. Go ahead and read that, brother.
The law of truth was in his mouth, and iniquity was not found in his lips. He walked with me in peace and equity, and did turn many away from iniquity.
From iniquity. Okay, so the law of truth was in his mouth, and iniquity was not found in his lips. He walked with me in peace and equity, and did turn many away from iniquity. Iniquity is sin. So the law, God's law, is truth. So we're showing you that all these words you Christians often use have to do with God's laws, His commandments. Let's try love. Go to 1 John chapter 5 and verse 3. 1 John chapter 5 and verse 3. See what that says there.
For this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not grievous.
So, the love of God is keeping his commandments, and his commandments are not hard to do. That's what it means by it, not grievous. So, love has to do with God's commandments. Let's go to John chapter 14 and verse 15. John chapter 14 and verse 15. Let's see what that says. John 14 and 15. Read that, brother.
Okay. If ye love me, keep my commandments.
If you love me, keep my commandments. So Jesus is saying, if you love him, keep his commandments. It's that simple. Now, a lot of Christians say nobody can be perfect. Let's see if that's true. Let's go to Matthew chapter 5 and verse 48. Matthew chapter 5 and verse 48. Matthew chapter 5. I hope Christians out there are keeping up with what we're doing here. Matthew chapter 5 and verse 48. You can read that, brother.
Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father, which is in heaven, is perfect.
So Jesus says, be ye therefore perfect, which is your... read that again. I'm sorry, brother. Read that again.
Sure. Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father, which is in heaven, is perfect.
So Jesus is saying, be ye therefore perfect. How do you be perfect? Let's go to 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 61. These are the precepts to everything I'm reading. 1 Kings chapter 8 and verse 61. 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 61.
Let your heart therefore be perfect with the Lord our God, to walk in his statutes and to keep his commandments as at this day.
So being perfect is walking in the laws of God and keeping his statutes and commandments. That's what being perfect is. Let's go to Psalms 19. And we'll start at verse 7. Psalms 19 and verse 7. So we're just giving you a rundown of some of the words you hear every day in the Christian church. Nobody can be perfect. We're proving what it is to be perfect. You got to keep God's laws. When people...
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, brother.
Explain that again. You said nobody can be perfect.
Right. So read that again. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So you said nobody on earth can be perfect.
That's what Christians say.
Except Jesus.
Except Jesus.
So that is true then, right?
Well, let's read, as a matter of fact, let's go to Job. Let's go off for a minute. Let's go to Job.
Job or Job?
J-O-B, Job.
Okay, Job.
Let's go to Job chapter 1. And I think it said, let's read verse 8. Job chapter 1, verse 8. Let's see if Job was perfect.
And the Lord said unto Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job?
Job.
That there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and an upright man.
A perfect and an upright man.
One that feareth God.
And escheweth evil. So being perfect, as you can see, Job was perfect. We can also find in the Bible that Abraham was perfect. So being perfect is someone who walks in the commandments and the laws of God. Anyone else has a question?
So what, I may have misheard you, but what made Job perfect? Did you say he kept God's command?
Go back to 1 Kings. 1 Kings chapter 8. And this will answer your question, brother. 1 Kings chapter 8 and verse 61. Read verse 61.
Okay. Let your heart therefore be perfect.
Stop. Let your heart therefore be perfect.
With the Lord our God, to walk in his statutes.
His statutes.
and to keep his commandments,
and to keep his commandments
as at this day.
as at this day. So being perfect is keeping God's commandments. So that's why Jesus was considered perfect. He kept God's commandments. This is why Job was considered perfect. He kept God's commandments, and Abraham kept God's commandments.
So, according to that, so Job never sinned?
It's not a question of whether Job never sinned, but when he got to a spiritual maturity in his life, he kept God's commandments. Just like before I started keeping God's commandments, I was always in sin. Now I'm keeping God's commandments. It's not to say that I'm totally abstinent of sin. It just means that I put keeping God's commandments in practice, and God honors that.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? Let's go to John.
Oh, I do. Before you go to that,
Sure.
what are God commandments again? For the viewers out there who don't know.
So there are about 613 commandments.
Good Lord, I didn't know that.
Right. So everyone knows about the 10 commandments, but all the other commandments are wrapped up in those 10. Like, for example, one of the top 10 commandments is thou shalt not kill. Well, there's other commandments in the 613 that goes with thou shalt not kill. For example, people say, well, nobody can keep all the commandments. Well, give me Deuteronomy chapter 22, and we'll read verse 5. You can keep all the commandments that apply to you. Here's a commandment that don't apply to you. Read this.
The woman shall not wear that which pertaineth unto a man.
So a woman shouldn't wear that which pertaineth unto a man. That's a commandment for a woman. I'm a man, so I don't have to worry about that commandment. Read the rest of it.
Neither shall a man put on a woman's garment, for all that do so are an abomination unto the Lord thy God.
So a man shouldn't wear a woman's garment, which is a dress.
Well, I can agree with that one, but a woman can't wear pants?
A woman should not wear pants. This is why they put zippers on pants, because a woman zip her pants on, what's she gonna pull out? She's got nothing to pull out. Pants are for men. Any other questions?
So what about like, I guess the egg question. Oh, never mind. Go home.
Okay, give me John chapter 8. John chapter 8 in the New Testament. This goes back to the word truth. John chapter 8. And we're going to read verse 32. Verse 32.
And ye shall know the truth,
You shall know the truth. And ye shall know the truth.
and the truth shall make you free.
So what is the truth? Give me Psalms 119. Psalms 119 should tell us what the truth is. Because Christians always make this comment, ye shall know the truth and the truth shall set you free. But they don't know what the truth is. We're going to show them today what the truth is. Psalms 119 and read verse 151. Psalms 119, verse 151.
Thou art near, O Lord, and all thy commandments are true.
All the commandments are true. So God's statutes, laws, and commandments are the truth. So righteousness means God's laws. The word spirit means, matter of fact, let's go to, because people get confused on this one too. Go to Galatians 5 for spirit. Galatians 5. So righteousness is God's laws. Love is God's laws, because Jesus says, if you love me, keep the commandments. The truth is God's laws. Perfection is God's laws. And now we're going to read about the spirit. Galatians 5.
I'm sorry, not to cut you off, brother. Before you read that, so you said keep God commandments.
Yes.
And what did you say about love again?
Well, Jesus says, if ye love me, keep my commandments.
Okay.
So if you love Jesus, you have to be keeping the commandments to prove that you love him.
So, but I've been taught that God loves everybody regardless.
Yeah, so Now that's another lesson for another day, but all through the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, we can prove that God only loves the 12 tribes of Israel. And who are the 12 tribes of Israel? The so-called blacks, Native Americans, and Latinos. No one else. The 12 tribes of Israel are those people.
All the other races that's on this entire world, God does not love.
No.
Except for, can you repeat that again?
The so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. These are the people who went into the diaspora, into captivity to all the nations around the world. And to this day are still in captivity until the return of Christ. Now, I want to touch on that, something you was bringing up about God not loving the rest of the world. Let's touch on that for a minute. Watch this.
But not to cut you off again, brother. It's just because it was like, what if God didn't love the entire world? I thought that was Jesus' whole purpose of going to Calvary and dying on the cross for us.
Yeah, he died on the cross for the 12 tribes of Israel. No one else. And I'm going to prove that from 2nd Esdras. That's Esdras, 2nd Esdras. Because we're reading from the 1611 King James Bible. So that's 2nd Esdras. We're going to start at let's start at verse 53. Verse 53. 2nd Esdras chapter 6 and verse 53. This is going to touch on what the brother was talking about. We'll start at verse 53. Yeah, no problem. What this will do is prove to people who are watching this that God only came for a chosen people. So, let's see. Yeah, I'll read the verse 53 and then you can catch up with 54. Verse 53. Upon the 6th day thou gavest commandment unto the earth that before thee it should bring forth beasts, cattle, and creeping things. I'm going to read that again. Upon the 6th day thou gavest commandment unto the earth that before thee it should bring forth beasts, cattle, and creeping things. So God made all the animals, the creeping things that follow the air in the 6th day. Verse 54. And after these, Adam was also made. And after these, Adam also, whom thou madest Lord over all thy creatures, of him come we all, and the people also whom thou hast chosen. So the Lord is telling us we all come from Adam. But it also says, and the people also whom thou hast chosen. Verse 55. And this have I spoken before thee, O Lord, because thou madest the world for our sakes. Who is the our sakes? The people of Israel, the 12 tribes of Israel.
Well, excuse me, brother, I have a question.
Sure.
So, since you just read that everybody comes from Adam, and if Adam is Israelite and everyone comes from Adam, would God love everyone then? If every race comes from Adam?
Well, I'll read it again. Let's see, verse 55. All these have I spoken before thee, O Lord, because thou madest the world for our sakes. So who is the our? Verse 56. It says, as for the other people, and this will answer the brother's question. As for the other people, which also come of Adam, thou hast said they are nothing, but be like unto spit, and hast likened the abundance of them unto a drop that falleth from a vessel. So if you're carrying a bucket of water and a drop falls out of it, you don't care. You keep walking with that vessel of water. So God calls them a drop of water and spittle.
So, this is another question, brother.
Mm-hmm.
So, if God doesn't love other races, then why create them in the first place?
That's a great question. Let's go to that. Give me 1 second. That is a great question. Why create them in the first place? Let's see. Give me 1 minute. Let's see. we're going to show you where God says he made the other people to be servants unto his people. But it got turned around because we didn't keep God's commandments. So to answer the brother's question about the other people that were made by God, we go to Isaiah chapter 14, and we're going to read verses 1 and 2. Verse 1, for the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel. So Jacob and Israel are the same people. And set them in their own land. So this is talking about a people who don't have their own land. Chinese have their own land. It's called China. The Italians got their own land. It's Italy. The Irish, Ireland. The Filipinos, the Philippines. There's only one group of people on the planet who don't have their own land. We're going to get to that in a minute. And set them in their own land, and the strangers shall be joined with them. The strangers will be the other nations. And they shall cleave to the house of Jacob, to the house of Israel. Verse 2, and the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids. So all the other people, all the different races, they're going to be servants and handmaids when Christ return and take his people into their own land. And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, because right now we're their captives and have been so for hundreds of years. And shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. So we're going to rule over the people who oppress us right now. It says we shall rule over our oppressors. So,
and that's when Christ comes.
And this is after Christ returns, yes. So,
So basically, well, let's say, like, cause we're all descendants of, our ancestors that came before. So, let's say like the descendants of slave owners and stuff, they still will be punished because technically they didn't do anything to us that's descendants of slaves right now.
technically, who didn't do anything? I want to be clear on who you're talking about.
Well, let's speak on just white and black people. So
Certain white people who didn't do anything. That's what you're saying?
Well, I'm just saying, like the descendants from white slave owners today,
Gotcha.
they didn't do anything.
Right.
So they will be punished.
Yes, and I'm going to read that right now. Give me Isaiah chapter 14. And thank you. And we're going to start at verse. Let's start at verse 20. How about we start at verse 20? Isaiah 14, verse 20.
Thou shalt not be joined with them in burial, because thou hast destroyed thy land and slain thy people. The seed of the evildoers shall never be renowned.
So the seed of the evildoers shall never be. Who are the evildoers in today? Who are taking over all the lands of all the people around the world, bombing their lands and doing it? Who was the only country that used a nuclear bomb on a different country? Read verse 21.
Prepare slaughter for his children.
Prepare slaughter for his children. What children? Whose children? The children of the slave master. Read.
For the iniquity of their fathers.
So the children of the slave masters, we have to prepare slaughter for them for the iniquity of their fathers, the slave masters. Read.
That they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the of the world with cities.
It's over for them. So hopefully that answers the brother's question.
So it's nothing that they can do to ask God for mercy.
Matter of fact, the next time we do this, I got a book that talks about those kinds of things, and it says in the book that the Edomites, which is the biblical name for the people who call themselves white, it says they have absolutely no mercies with God. I'll bring that book in next time we come. So any other questions?
May you repeat what that scripture was again?
That's Isaiah 14, verses 20 and 21.
Thou shalt not be joined with them in burial, because thou hast destroyed thy land
They destroyed our land
and slain thy people.
and slain our people.
The seed of the the seed of the evildoers shall never be renowned.
Shall never be renowned. They'll never run the earth again. Once Christ returns, we will be in charge, the Israelites, and we will run the earth. And we're going to run it in righteousness. There won't be no more unwanted pregnancies, no more divorces, no more women jumping in your face telling you she going to do what she want to do. No. In that day, the women will be submissive. Give me Isaiah chapter 4. And we'll close out with this unless the brothers got more questions. Isaiah chapter 4, verse 1. We'll read that.
And in that day,
In the day of the Lord,
7 women shall take hold of one man,
7 women shall take hold of one man.
saying, we will eat our own bread
We'll eat our own bread
and wear our own apparel.
and wear our own clothes. You don't have to do anything.
Only let us be called by thy name,
Please marry us
to take away our reproach.
to take away our shame from the booty shorts and the breasts out and all this other garbage. So that's what's going to be the thing in the day of the Lord. So,
Speak it, brother.
and with that, any other questions, brothers? And with that, brothers and sisters,
So I have a question before we.
sure.
So, in saying all of this, what if, say, there's a person on an island somewhere who's never heard of God, never heard of any of this, and they don't keep the commandments or anything, they don't know what they are they punished to say like death or anything?
Are we talking about an Israelite that's in somewhere, or we're talking about somebody of the other nation? Talking about an Israelite. The other nation, well, an Israelite. Let's see what Jesus says. So let's go to. I want to say Mark chapter 16, verse 15. Mark chapter 16. And matter of fact, I'll read it. It says, and he said unto them, this is Jesus talking, and he said unto them, go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. So before Christ returns, the word would have been set out in all the world. If no one hasn't heard it, something's wrong with them. They're living under a rock. He says, go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. That means everyone who's an Israelite should hear this word before the return of Christ. Any other questions? And brothers and sisters, we want to thank you for tuning in. Like, comment, and subscribe to Crushing Christian Views. And with that, brothers and sisters, I want to say shalom.
I am the punishment of God. And if you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you.